Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I say everybody every time, not having no idea how many people are actually listening to this, if
Dozens,
any.
probably, maybe.
There are dozens of us. Welcome back to Fright Fight. This is the podcast where me, Nick Boddick across all socials, nickboddick.com, and Mr. Fat, apparently, we debate different horror properties. I'm here with my illustrious guest, this gentleman, Mr. Travis Brown.
Thank you. And I'm everything you can find with my socials writing, travisbrownwriting.com. And hello to your cat, Nick.
Dude, like they've been sleeping. I have 5 cats and they've been sleeping all morning. And now that I'm starting this, they're going to start waking up and being dickheads.
It's all right. I'm watching my dog. He's laying in the other room, I think, sleeping. But whenever he senses that I am busy, he's usually like, "Now's a great time to go out."
For sure, dude. It's like they live to just like derail us, to interrupt things we don't want interrupted. But all right, so today on Fright Fight, I got the intro right today, dude.
You did.
Literally the first time in like 9 things. Never gotten it right. All right, wonderful. Off to a good start. So, yeah, Fright Fight, episode 3. Today, Travis and I are going to be debating entries from what is personally my favorite horror franchise of all time, the Evil Dead series.
Yes.
And that obviously includes Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2013, Ash vs. the Evil Dead, and the new one, Evil Dead Rise, which was fucking phenomenal. Did you see it yet?
Yes,
dude.
Yes.
It was so good.
It felt like such a classic. First of all, I love the 2013 one. I think that's one that we're debating.
Yeah.
I know it has its fans and its detractors. It didn't have any real camp, which this one did have some, but this one was just this perfect balance of kind of silly, but still just freaks you the hell out. And I think it was so well acted by everybody involved. It was great.
Yeah, dude, it was such like a perfect continuation. It had everything you want from an Evil Dead movie. Like you said, there was some humor in it, but there wasn't too much because obviously, as we know, like once they got to like Army of Darkness, it was essentially a comedy horror rather than a horror comedy or just horror. But this one, it had well placed humor, and dude, like it was scary. Like legitimately scary, and there were so many like perfectly placed callbacks to the originals, especially a lot to Evil Dead 2, which I will be defending today against Travis's Evil Dead 2013. And this is a difficult one because, like you, I love the 2013 version. It was fantastic.
It's almost, when I was watching Rise, it made me think that it's such a great blending of like the genuine horror elements of the remake and some of the like stylistic fucking rammy magic of Evil Dead 2. But that also illustrates it's so tough in this fight for us to compare them because they're almost different genres. Like there's a separate Evil Dead genre which isn't quite comedy, isn't quite horror. It changes on the spectrum based on which entry it is. But it's this amazing, almost dark fantasy in a lot of ways.
For sure.
And I don't know. I'm excited, but I think they're all good. I can't think of an Evil Dead entry. I loved Ash vs. Evil Dead too. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, dude, every episode multiple times, dude.
It's all so good. So.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, Ash Williams is one of the best horror. He's an icon. Like he's up there with like Freddy and Jason, in my opinion. Like he's so like integral to like the horror zeitgeist, kind of like people who haven't even seen the movies will recognize like a meme featuring Ash Williams.
Yep. And he's spawned all these different copycats and homages. I think even like God, there's a cartoon when I was so much younger with the Grim Reaper, something Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Oh yeah, dude.
And they had Haas Delgado, who was a Ash Williams parody. It was so amazing. Like the boomstick, the chainsaw, groovy. It is just so distinct and so full of character.
Oh yeah, dude. Like Army of Darkness is probably my least favorite, like Evil Dead property. And I mean, I say that as being a huge fan of Army of Darkness. Like I love the movie, but just like compared to the rest, it was too much of a departure for me to like hold it in the same esteem as like Evil Dead 2, the one I'm defending today, is my favorite of all of them.
Yeah.
But Army of Darkness has my favorite Ash Williams line where he's just like, "This is my boomstick," and
Mhm.
dude, it's just like it's perfect.
I think the one of the peak Evil Dead scenes, there are so many, so it's really hard to pick, but it was in Army of Darkness, and it's when he gets to the cemetery, and he's like, nobody said anything about 3 books, and then he tries to mumble his way through. I feel like that just
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
as
Barada
a
Nikto.
horror writer who also loves a lot of comedy, I think that was such a huge impact for me as a kid because I always go back to that. Like it was so clever and it was funny, but the atmosphere was still creepy, and
Yeah,
it's just perfect. I like they should just give Sam Raimi an unlimited budget. I do like how the remake and this newest one, Rise, had different directors, but Bruce Campbell and Raimi were still involved. So I mean, you
yeah,
could have I'm done with the MCU. There's too much crap in there now. Give me an Evil Dead multiverse. All right, just keep
dude.
pumping them out. Let
I
new horror
would.
directors get in there.
Yeah, dude. I mean, give me all the MCU you can possibly produce, Kevin Feige. But anyways, yeah, dude, I would love that. That'd be amazing
Yep.
because there's such like a. I do like the fact though that they have not oversaturated the Evil Dead market. Like it's still kind of like a. So what I'm looking for, it's kind of like a. It's held on a pedestal for a reason, and like there's been three, not including Ash versus the Evil Dead, the TV
Mm,
show. There's been three directors. Sam Raimi directed the original trilogy, Fede Alvarez the remake, and then or the reboot, whatever it is, and then I'm blanking on the director of Rise, but there has not been a lot of people in that playground, and I would wager that there are hundreds of aspiring filmmakers who would give everything to be able to play in that sandbox.
Let me pitch something to your imagination. What if Ari Aster did an Evil Dead movie?
Oh, dude,
Like I haven't seen his. I don't know if you've seen Beau is Afraid. I haven't
not
seen it
yet.
yet. Uh, it's gotten weird reviews, but I like a
Uh
weird
huh.
movie. I loved Green Knight. There's a lot of kookiness
Mm-hmm.
I'll take.
Same here.
But if he did an Evil Dead movie, like oh my god,
It
that'd
could
be amazing.
definitely be, yeah, and that would be more in the vein of I think the latter two, the two most recent Evil Dead films. Like it would be straight up scary,
Mhm.
which I'm all for it.
Yeah,
But anyways, let's get to. I mean, we could talk just general Evil Dead all day, dude. But
yeah.
then that would become an episode of We Should Be Writing rather than Fright Fight. And we
Right,
are
right.
here to assert our superiority over
Okay.
the other. So as I mentioned, I will be defending Evil Dead 2, the sequel to the original, and in my opinion, the best thing to ever come out of the Evil Dead universe. While Travis here will be doing the 2013 version of Evil Dead, which starred why am I Jane? I don't remember. I don't know. I'm trying to list the cast. I didn't try to do that with my own, but
Yeah, I'm blanking
Jane
on
Levy. Jane Levy. Yeah. Um,
which I do think not to cut you off, but the 2013 remake I thought was super well acted for what it was, but I
oh yeah.
can't name a single person that was in it.
Yeah, and really, yeah, the only one I can is Jane Levy came to
Okay.
mind. She was Mia. Um, but I will start, if you don't mind, by saying that Evil Dead 2 is the pinnacle of Evil Dead, which is not to say that it's gone downhill since then, but just that they've gone different directions. But I do think that Evil Dead 2 kind of encapsulates everything that the Evil Dead is. It captures the spirit of the Evil Dead as Raimi and Campbell envisioned it. It has like the original Evil Dead, the first one, 1981, it was a straight up horror movie. There was maybe a moment or two of humor in there, but it was straight up horror, straight up genre piece. And then Evil Dead 2 is where they leaned into the more slapstick kind of. I mean, like it's got the scene where everything in the living room is laughing at Ash, and it's got that meme where the shot where Ash looks up covered in blood and his eyes cross and he's laughing. Like
Yeah,
it's got the hand, dude, the hand.
the hand, the tiny ash,
Yes, yes, the tiny Ash, and the kitchen scene, some of the best physical acting of in history.
Yeah,
Like
That one made Bruce Campbell like he was very good in the first one, and I loved the first movie a lot. But when they really just let him go wild in Evil Dead 2, that like 1,000 memes were born. That was his
Yeah,
career right there.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying, dude. Like it was just such like a it took everything that worked about the original, and the original was so well received. Like Stephen King was the one who got it, boosted into the mainstream. Took everything that worked with the original, and then just injected this pitch perfect humor into it, which would go on to basically define the genre and to define Bruce Campbell and as the character of Ash, or I guess define Ash as the character. But yeah, dude, for me, it is everything that Evil Dead is, should be, wants to be, and like it was the perfect like I guess proving ground for what that franchise would become.
So this one's tough because I guess it depends on how we want to qualify what we're defending as like the better movie. I think that in keeping with tradition from our previous Fright fights, if we're talking about what is the better horror movie, I think the Evil Dead 2013 remake gets it. And I love Evil Dead 2. You could leave me on a desert island and just watch that on a loop. But I do think that the humor, while it made the movie overall better and gave so much personality to the Deadites and to everything Evil Dead and that mythos, that universe, I think it really came with the trade-off of a loss of tension and a loss of horror. And the older I get, the more I watch it, the less scarier it becomes. Like there's still glimmers, but even as you said, the first one was pretty much straight horror, and it was pretty effective. And I think that the legacy of that goes so well into the 2013 remake, and the 2013 remake is genuinely creepy. It is just
Yeah,
has all these heavy themes of addiction and battling your personal demons and isolation and being trapped, and of course the body horror and the mutilation is through the roof. So, in terms of what's the better Evil Dead movie, I think it's difficult. It's like saying what's the best flavor of ice cream. It really is a personal preference. But I think for
yeah,
what is objectively a scarier horror movie, 2013 takes it so clearly. And even now, comparing
yeah,
it to Rise, I think 2013 is scarier than Rise. Rise is nice. It does have that blend where some more of the humor is creeping in, and it's always a balance. And there's a trade off because the more bathos and whiplash that you put in emotionally and tonally between horror and comedy, you can come up with a more enjoyable film, but you are usually sacrificing some tension if you lean more and more on comedy because you're now creating like this surrealist abstract universe where people aren't going to be as scared because they can't put themselves into it. Like it's really hard with Evil Dead 2 to put yourself into Ash's position because he's just so zany. Like if that happened to any of us, and the other thing too is that I don't know if everyone realizes this, but Evil Dead 2 is not really a sequel. It's more of like a soft reboot.
yeah,
So it's Ash not with the. It would be different if it was a straight sequel because I think it's one of my favorite tropes in horror is someone who becomes grizzled and desensitized to it because they've gone through those horrific traumatic experiences. So if this was
mhm,
actually Evil Dead 2, this is Ash after surviving the first cabin. I think it would be more effective because people can view him as a character who has gone from naive and normal to like this badass supernatural boomstick slaying guy. But because it's more of a reboot, then it's a really accelerated character arc, and it
yeah,
leans so hard into the comedy that while it's super enjoyable to watch, by like the midpoint or even the end of the first act, it feels fantastical. It's a little bit let loose from the moors. Whereas the 2013 one is the definition of grounded horror throughout, and it is just creepy from the beginning until the end. And I also think it's a lot more clever than it gets credit for because one of my biggest things with horror is almost every good horror story is based on some central rules. And it's not the same thing with like No Sleep where it's like I found a list of creepy rules.
yeah,
It goes so much deeper and foundational beyond that where you have to sort of transgress in a believable way for the horror to seem closer and more realistic, and that goes back to fairy tales and to mythology. And I think with the 2013 remake, they really nailed it because they came up with these different ways of like going through the book when you know you're not supposed to, but it's also so hard to take seriously because it's so over the top. It's like wrapped in barbed wire and covered in garbage bags. And then spoilers too for anyone at this point who hasn't heard or gone there, but with the one where it's just like the only way to stop it is to completely like destroy the body, to murder the vessel, and then they come up with her brother kills Mia, but then is able to revive her to basically do an exorcism. Like, it was all so good and grounded and smart, and it was just like a lovely, perfect horror movie. It just didn't have as much Evil Dead charm, and one of those things is you just didn't have Bruce Campbell in there. Like, he carries so much charisma. So,
and actually, when I was kind of prepping for this debate, I was like, yes, I agree 100% with you. As a horror, if we're debating which is the better horror movie, it's 2013 by a mile. Because yeah, dude, it was like legitimately a scary movie. And
the eyeball needles and
oh my god,
like the face peeling with glass.
Yes, there's the box cutter, the X-Acto knife. That's
yes.
it.
Oh, and the nail gun. The nail gun legitimately made me feel uncomfortable. Because it's like, damn, that is what someone could do if they really just went nuts.
Just lost it, yeah. And so yeah, I agree with you there. It is. I mean, it's some of the best horror I've ever seen. Fede Alvarez is great at what he does. But Evil Dead 2 has an eyeball shooting across the room on a string you can see.
Yeah.
Like, it just has that, like you said, it has that Evil Dead charm that only Bruce Campbell can bring. And
though, I don't know, you probably noticed, because you're a genius, and this is the kind of thing you pick up on, but in Evil Dead Rise, they had a homage to that with the eyeball shot.
Oh, yeah.
And the more I think about Rise, the more I like it, because it really took what worked in Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, and then it took like the grounded, gritty, awfully close horror from 2013. It's like, I think we can balance these. And if they didn't do it, they got super close. And I'm so excited to see what the next Evil Dead's going to be.
Yeah, and they've definitely talked about, I think Ted Raimi or Ivan Raimi, one of them, somebody, Rob Tappert. They've talked about how there is like they have plans for future installments. So I'm just give it all to me. But so okay, I guess moving forward as we do more Fright Fights, we need to establish what exactly it is we are. Like, by what metric are we judging these the things we're defending?
And my proposal would be that we come up with like 3 or 4 or 5 where we just rate each movie on a scale of 1 to 10 based on things like horror, based on style. You can do characters, and then the plot. Like, we just come up with this, and then we go through them at the end. And then that way people can leave comments. So it's just like, okay, so if we're talking about characters from each movie, I would say I'd probably give the Evil Dead remake 2013 like a 7. Like, Mia had a strong performance. Her brother was good. The nerdy guy. But overall, they're a little forgettable. And then I think if you looked at Evil Dead 2, I'd give that a 10 just because of Bruce Campbell.
For sure.
I would say, yes, if we compare those categories, your movie for sure wins, because no one would forget Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, for sure. I like that, though. I like having having a few different things to judge each thing by, and then kind of adding up everything at the end.
So and then at the end it'd be like, okay, this one was it was a 80 out of 100 based on these categories, and this one was a 70. Maybe one of them has 3 10 out of 10 categories, but then the last 2 are just like 4 or 5.
Right, for sure. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I'll try to come up with a few categories. I did. What's that?
You just come up with a scale for.
Yeah. That's a really good idea. I like that. But so and what I mentioned before with the eyeball in Evil Dead 2, that
Mm,
actually is kind of a larger point of mine. It's that so Evil Dead 2013 has such like a it has that perfect balance between gritty and polished. Like
mm,
it is a visually stunning film, and like objectively speaking, the cinematography is outstanding. The but then it also has, I mean, the subject matter alone just makes it so like just like gutter kind of like it feels dirty, like despite being so crisp, and which
mhm.
I mean that's a like a point of support for that one. But Evil Dead 2 has this like the perfect low budget feeling. And
Yeah.
there's such a magic in those old like 70s and 80s horror movies where you can tell that they made it on a shoestring budget, and they I mean the original Evil Dead from 81 is just it's a masterclass in no budget filmmaking, that like improvisation,
Mhm.
um, and just using what you have at your disposal to create the look and the things you want to create. And Evil Dead 2 just cranked that up. Yes, they had more of a budget, but it still has that inherent like it was Sam Raimi's second movie, so he didn't know how to make a movie with a big budget yet. So
Mhm.
despite having all this stuff at his disposal, and I'm sure he used all the resources at his disposal, what ended up coming out, or, the final product still ended up being this low budget, just gore fest. And like I said, there's a magic in that feeling when you can see the string the eyeball is sliding on.
And
And
yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think that they are basically two perfect, like no budget movies. Obviously, I'll have some budget, but basically nothing. So, Evil Dead 1 and Clerks. I think those were
oh
the
yep.
two best done, and completely different genres, completely different where the money was spent. But they nailed it, and it's just so amazing.
That's
See,
me. That's me and Kevin Smith, dude. He's the reason I
why
started. He's the reason I started writing.
this is why I knew we should be friends.
Yeah,
But yes, and it's so amazing to see that, and so many movies these days will have insane, inflated budgets and just fail to tell the story as well.
mm-hmm.
Um, Dungeons and Dragons, the newest one, I don't know if you saw it. I actually really liked it. I thought it was a super fun movie. But it was like a cool adventure movie, and then I heard it had $150 million budget. I was like, what the fuck? There's no way that was ever going to make its money back.
Yeah,
You could have done that for less than a third and actually maybe made a profit and kept making them, because it was a
yeah,
good movie. It was fun. It was funny. Chris Pine was super charming. He's like a bard. But yeah, so classic Evil Dead and then Clerks are amazing with no budget. I
yeah.
do think that leads to a really good comparison for at least these movies we're talking about. I don't know about future ones, but style and effects as a category. So when you think of Evil Dead 2, the effects are charming, but they're cheesy, and you can kind of see through them. But I think that it has so many style points. Like it gets around not having a budget. And I just love it. Everything with like the animated hand and everything's practical. Like it is
Yeah,
so well done. It's not realistic, but that
yeah,
serves the tone. But I think that while it might not have as much style, the 2013 one, the effects were just amazing. And I'm thinking specifically of the end where it's raining blood the entire
yes,
time and
yep.
the chainsaw chase through like that shed. It was so fucking good. Like it was just wild. So I don't. That's a tough category. I would give Evil Dead 2 style, but in terms of like just using effects for storytelling, Evil Dead 2013 nailed it.
I think I would probably agree with that. Um, but man, this one really does come down to you were right what you said at the very top of this about how we're essentially judging movies out of two different genres.
Mhm.
What would have honestly been better would be to do Rise versus 2013.
Which would be, I think that'd be even harder
Yeah,
because they're much.
but it would be harder to kind of separate the two, but
Yeah.
also easier because they are much closer to one genre.
Well, I'll say I definitely thought coming into this one. I believe that I won the first Fright Night fight. You won number two. I had a feeling this one's going to be a draw, just
Yep,
because
I
it's
had the
like,
same
yeah,
feeling, dude. Yeah, dude.
it's a no contest. It's like a boxer and then like a race car driver. For a second, thought they were doing the same thing. They're like, oh, we can't even. It's not the same
Yeah, it's
sport.
not even a fight. Yeah, for sure, dude.
Okay,
Like, yeah, I'll concede to a draw here.
let's see, do a draw. So we're gonna have to. Well, if you come up with the categories and like a gradient scale, I think that'll be very helpful because then we can even fill that out ahead of time. Like we'll do a Google Sheet or Google Doc or something,
Yeah,
and then have our own, and then that way we can go through it and actually rank them
yeah,
and go
and
from
I
there.
can I can make use of my Adobe After Effects and have good graphics and shit. I love doing stuff like that. I'm a dork.
Yeah. I've got no, I've got Adobe for work, and I use it. But I've also got, I think it's like Power Direct. It's called Cyberlink, and Power Director 365, and I use that for most of my video editing. It's just cool the stuff that's available. Like when I was in college, we did all these student films, and my buddy was the main tech guy. But I always thought it was neat what was available, and that was, gosh,
Yeah,
like 14 years ago. And now there's all this cool shit that is just getting better and better.
yeah. Isn't it weird you were in college almost a decade and a half ago?
I'm 34.
Yeah,
So
dude, my
yeah,
birthday's next month. I'm gonna be 34 too. I hate it.
welcome to the club. Well, I'll be 35 in October, and it'll be like 2 weeks after I get married.
Oh,
So
nice,
I'm
nice.
actually turning 35 on the honeymoon. So I don't know. I'll
Oh,
get
that's awesome.
like a little cupcake or something wherever we go.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'll bring that up.
I'll get you a cake. I'm gonna get a cake sent to you.
Well, we'll be in Italy, so that might be tough for the honeymoon. Yeah.
You know who I am, dude?
You know,
I'm Nick Boddick, and you can find me at nickboddick.com and Nick Boddick on all social medias, dude. That was a perfect setup.
that was a great, time for me to plug TravisBrownWriting.com. But no, it's all good.
There we go. All right. We will be back next time with another Fright Fight. All right. Later, man.
All right, dude. Take it easy.